Apple is dropping intelligence. They no longer have intelligence, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are. Welcome back to Tailosive Tech Live on YouTube. Hope everybody's having a great day because Apple has been working on their own large language models for a while. So I think dropping it through a beta within a beta, that's kind of the funny thing. This is through iOS 18.1. It's a public and developer, no, I think it's developer beta mainly. But my point is the public can access the developer beta. And you join a wait list in order to not overwhelm Apple's own servers, even though I thought these devices were supposed to be running the large language models mostly locally. There's still a wait list within the beta. Most people have been able to get on it and access it pretty quickly. Hi, Ethan Dabish. Thank you for 14 months of support. To answer your question very quickly, did I install iOS 18 beta on my main device? Well, no, because I still have the old-fashioned type to Siri interface. But that was the funny thing. Seeing all these news sites talking about, now you can type to Siri by pressing down on the home bar at the bottom. It's like, this is an accessibility feature. Anybody can do this on iOS 17s. I've already changed mine. I just hold the side button, and I get a much cleaner type to Siri animation. The new ones are actually very bubbly, very clean as well. But no, I've not installed it on my main. I was actually directly advised from others who had installed 18.1 on their mains not to do it because most of the cool features are not working yet. So they haven't rolled out all Apple Intelligence features as of right now. But they have rolled out, in my opinion, the most basic, simplistic ones. For example, the Photos updates where you can like search your photo library for very specific things, like show me all the pictures of my I don't know, daughter jumping in a pool, and it would just find those pictures, or looking through videos to find specific like show when this person is jumping on in a video, and it can find that. But it is still in beta, mind you. This is still not out of beta. This is still not available for anybody who's not on beta, and there's still things that are getting error messages or not working. Probably the most noticeable one that just affects the most amount of things across iOS 18, though, has to be everything involving proofread in text. So you can write a text or you can write an email, highlight all of it, and then select, like, you know, make this nicer, summarize this, make it shorter, make it more professional. The kinds of things that we've seen before. And to answer Nicholas's question in the chat, yeah, they basically haven't integrated ChatGPT yet. But just to be very clear, this is a good example. The fact that Apple is rolling out large language models now to their devices so that everyday people can now test them and use them and see what they're capable of doing. And yet they're doing all of this without any help from ChatGPT, which I hope kind of silences and shoots down kind of the quick knee-jerk reaction from Elon Musk. As soon as Apple started talking about Apple Intelligence, he immediately thought that ChatGPT was being integrated on the system level, and he was going to ban anyone from his company for using Apple Intelligence features, or he was going to ban everybody from using iPhones, which was just a ridiculous, silly notion. I also personally predict Elon wouldn't last 2 days on an Android phone, just seeing how basic things in iOS drive him nuts. If he tried to switch to an Android, oh my god, he would quit very quickly, in my opinion. Especially with how much he uses Twitter, he would quickly realize how horrible Twitter is on Android, or how little Twitter is prioritized on Android. Maybe it'd be a good thing for Twitter users who want to use Android. Anyway, so ChatGPT is not integrated yet, but once again, even when it is integrated, it's not at the system level. It's not like ChatGPT has a backdoor way to access your phone. You have to manually hit, yes, let's use ChatGPT. Siri can basically suggest using ChatGPT if it wants to. It doesn't require you to make an account. They can't build a profile on you because, again, it's an anonymous question. So they're not allowed to know which phones are asking which thing, where those phones are, what type of person is asking that kind of question. It's just kind of a anonymous general request that's being asked to ChatGPT, and again, you have to manually approve it every single time it gets used. Oh my God, Chris Norton, that was completely unnecessary. As usual, he just said have some cash. Didn't even ask a question. Seriously. Very, very generous, very, very kind of Chris, and completely unnecessary. So, thanks again. YouTube, still need that refund button so I can stop Chris Norton from the random super chats. Don't we all need a Chris Norton in our lives? I hope everybody can find someone in their life as generous as Chris Norton. Anyway, kind of the classic example you can see in Apple Intelligence are summarizing an email. Also, they did roll out the new reduce interruptions focus mode, which, I don't know, some people were trying to test this, which, if you're unaware, it basically will send you notifications for things that Apple Intelligence deems as vital and important, and not notify you for notifications that it deems as unimportant or not that time sensitive. Now, I'm sure in theory this probably works most of the time, but I don't know, like, large language models have been known to be unpredictable, especially between software versions where they will make obvious mistakes, to the point that Apple, even themselves, in especially on Mac OS, has been shown, like, when you ask Apple Intelligence a question, and the same thing happens with Meta AI or Grok or ChatGPT, Gemini, any one of those things where you ask it a question and it'll immediately respond with, you know, the details might be off, like, don't trust this entirely. You know, it's AI, which might make mistakes, which is why I would have a hard time trusting an AI filtering my notifications, personally. I'd be worried that, okay, it's using some large language model to figure out that if I get a text from my sister that says, you know, I am drowning right now, okay, let's notify him for that. But if it's a text that says, like, you know, this video I watched, here's a link to a video I watched that I thought was funny, and it just decides, okay, don't send that video because that's not time sensitive, but do send the I'm drowning notification. In theory, I get why it should work, and I'm not even trying to say it won't work. I'm guessing 95% of the time it would work. I just wouldn't trust it for that last 5% of the instances of, like, what if someone texts me in a non-urgent manner something that's very urgent? Like, they don't use all caps, they don't use exclamation marks, but they say something like, I don't know, what if my wife texts me that, like, you know, the car on self-driving hit another pothole, or something like that. Well, guess what? Self-driving got me stuck again. And what if she phrases it in a very casual way so the phone decides that that's not an immediate necessary notification? So all I'm trying to say is it's kind of a show-off feature of, like, let's see what a large language model, or let's see what Apple Intelligence can figure out based on reading my own text messages, which also feels kind of creepy. I know there's not a human being and it's done on device and everything, but still, just knowing that Siri has to analyze the context of every notification to try to figure out which ones are important and which ones aren't. I don't know. I don't really get behind that. I'd probably never use that focus mode, even though most of the time I'm sure it works, just for that little edge case of it maybe misinterpreting a sarcastic text or not interpreting a text correctly. I'm more like, you know what? I'm either going to be on Do Not Disturb or Disturb. Right now I'm on disturb mode because I have the car today, but my wife is still at work, so if she had a change of plans or she needed me, yeah, I would want to get notified for that. I'd want to see it right away, and I wouldn't want Apple Intelligence to be in charge of deciding whether or not my wife sent the right urgent phrasing within the text message. So that's the kind of thing that's, like, it's kind of cool, but I don't think I would ever use it. Also, of course, there's the new animations for Siri that everybody's obsessed with. That's honestly probably the coolest part of all of this Apple Intelligence features, is that now when you activate Siri, it lights up the edge and it kind of has this bubbling effect. It looks cool. It's the kind of iOS animation that you just don't get when you switch to Android. And it's the kind of thing that Apple's really good at flexing on everybody else, is like how good the animations and notifications are. And of course, you can double tap on the home bar to text to Siri if you want, but like I said, that's already a feature you can do through accessibility settings. See, someone sent me a text right now. Oh, it's just Randy. He's fine. See, that would be sent to non-important notifications. But Richard Perez, thank you so much for the super chat sent with Apple Intelligence. I'm trying to figure out how he sent it with Apple Intelligence. Did you show your work, Richard? How did you do it? Did you say, like, send a super chat of $2? I doubt you did that. I'm guessing you wrote the message and then you said, summarize this message via proofread or something like that. There's also autocorrect has been updated a little bit, so instead of just predictive text showing you one word or two words at a time, now it can kind of do 3 or 4, kind of a bit more. It's gone sentient. Have I gotten AI yet, Drew? No. I haven't even figured out basic intelligence. I'm not ready for Apple Intelligence. Alpha the Wolf, 36 months of support. Holy crap, that's 3 years. And you used it to say, still can't figure out why I need AI. It's the most advanced piece of unusable tech. See, that's kind of how I feel, is AI is mostly branding. And Apple almost acknowledges this in some of the more recent interviews after DubDub, is that they've already been using neural nets and machine learning to improve photos, to make smart replies and predictive text work, and to do all kinds of things. They just didn't brand as AI before, that they are now branding as Apple Intelligence because it's using more generative AI features. I think that's what most people are getting hyped about, mainly because of OpenAI going kind of viral, I think, with their large language models. But again, I personally think it's more of it's not a scam as much as it is a fad. I don't even know if fad is the right way of using it. But the best example I can think of to summarize my opinions of AI is that it's kind of like 5G. 5G was over-marketed, over-hyped. In reality, it's slightly faster internet. It was hyped up as, gigabit internet that will allow self-driving and remote surgeries never possible before. And it's like, really? No, we're not using 5G for surgery. We're not using 5G for self-driving. It's mainly just a little bit faster cellular speeds, and not nearly as fast as it was marketed to be. So similarly, I don't think AI is going away. Like, I don't think the Apple Intelligence features are a fad that will come and then nobody will be using them in a year. I think we'll all probably be using some of these features for the long term, but they're the kind of features that we would have gotten anyway, as just these are new iOS 18 features that are now being branded as Apple Intelligence features for the sake of capitalizing on the AI hype train that OpenAI has kind of started with ChatGPT, Apple trying to jump on the bandwagon along with Google, along with Microsoft, along with Meta. Everybody's got to have their own AI now. Even Twitter's got Grok or whatever, which has consistently performed horribly for me, honestly. I don't know. I'm just not the kind of guy that's gotten much advantages from having a chatbot. I don't have much of a use for Siri in the first place. And this definitely doesn't change my use case for it. It's just not so, I'm not just genuinely asking questions all the time. I'm not looking for things to be summarized. My brain kind of does that for me. I'm not looking up random things all the time. I'm not Google searching things all the time. Maybe some people are, and I'm just different. It could be. But just the use cases for it are not super common for me. But 5G is still somehow slower than LTE in my area. It drives me mad. That's funny. Apple is my Roman Empire. Yeah, I'm probably with you there, Maverick. This beta is actually kind of slow and buggy. See, Brian Miller just said that the beta's slow and buggy. You're not the first person to tell me that. I've actually had more than one person tell me, I have the beta, I have 18.1. If you're thinking of installing it, don't do it, because the Apple Intelligence features that are available today are not that exciting. They're not that helpful, and they keep getting error messages, and it has been buggy, and it has been slow. So that's why, for those joining the stream who missed the beginning, I am not running iOS 18 on my mainly because of a, what do you call it? Principle. Now that I use my phone for work so much as a camera, I am hesitant to put beta software on it. In years prior, I had a dedicated camera and my phone could be a little buggy, but now not only does the Tailosive network rely on this, but the Telo Trucks marketing team kind of relies on my phone working reliably too. So I'm hesitant to put any beta software on it, but I'm not an Elon hater. I just think that you're crazy if you can't say anything good or bad about him. Like all human beings, he is flawed. including myself. I'm flawed. But you need to be able to say good things about them and bad things about them. And I think that we could do that about anybody. Let's see. What chip are you running it on? How fast? I haven't run it on anything yet, but how is anybody else running it and having a buggy experience? Viejo Salse, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, says AI should clean houses and wash clothes and give us time to work and create, not the other way around. So you're talking about like the humanoid robot application, which there actually has been a little bit of discussion about for Apple, saying that they might get into making some kind of robot. I don't know if it would be a human, but it's something maybe more like a Roomba that moves around and cleans or whatever. JJT says this is probably the most bug-filled beta I've ever downloaded. Wow. Never seen anyone in public actually using voice assistants. I haven't either, to be honest. I think it's a feature that tech communities and tech companies tend to think is used more than they really are. Most of the time in public, I think people just use their phone for scrolling, texting, social media, taking pictures, checking email. I don't think there's genuinely a lot of people looking for AI bots or digital assistants to proofread their texts, proofread their emails. Like all of the examples I've seen posted to Twitter so far with people using Apple Intelligence are usually writing the most horrible message they could possibly write. Like, I hate you and your entire family, and then select the text and say, make this sound nicer. And then the Apple Intelligence goes, I don't approve of your family. And it's like, okay, it's working, but when am I ever going to use that? I don't know. I just, usually at least with me and my wife, we want to talk about proofreading. That's what me and my wife do with each other all the time. She's like, I'm writing a message to so-and-so. Could be a friend, could be a family member, could be a coworker. And she's like, what do you think of this? And the kind of tiny, tiny details of like, I would use a period there. I would use an exclamation mark there. Very, very subtle wording changes where I pitch my text to her too, and I'm like, because oftentimes I'm driving the car and I get a text from my mom or a family member, and I'm driving, so I can't send the text, but my wife will write the text for me. And that's the kind of like human element where my opinion of how the proofread will do is dependent on who I'm texting, what the subject matter is. It's not as generic as just like, make this sound nicer. No, it's very, very specific. It's like, I use just there because there, or don't include that part, or do you need it to say hello? No, I don't need it to say hello. I don't know if I would trust a large language model to do much, and the thing that makes me feel like Apple Intelligence is a bit more gimmicky is the idea that someone could try proofread once or twice, and if it was me, using any of the examples I've seen of proofread, I would immediately just see the proofread example and go, nope, that's not what I wanted, and then change it back. And people, similar to how 3D Touch, as cool as a feature as I thought 3D Touch was, it didn't really last. You know, Apple quickly figured out, and people aren't utilizing this feature because they tried to use it once or twice, weren't satisfied with the results, so then they never used it again. And I think we're probably going to see a lot of that with Apple Intelligence features, is that people are going to try it once or twice, not be satisfied with it, and then never try it again, never want to use it, even if it gets better over time, because they're just going to go like, oh yeah, I tried that once and it's just a waste of time. I think there's a very, very possible situation where most of these Apple Intelligence features, especially ones like Genmoji, all the Apple emojis have never really taken off. I guess Memojis have made for a lot of profile pictures. At least they used to. Now I'm looking at the chat, and I don't think I see a single Memoji as a profile picture. For a while there were a lot of people that had Memojis for their profile picture everywhere, but then the AI kind of took over. Alpha says, I still love using 3D Touch on my XS Max. I love 3D Touch too, just to be clear. I thought it was a cool feature, but I understand why they got rid of it, because everybody I talked to never used it, and I feel like we're probably going to have something similar with Apple Intelligence, especially because of how software locked it is. Like, it only works on the 15 Pro right now. So many people on planet Earth use iPhones and don't have the 15 Pro. We're in the final stages of discussion, I think, with my wife's next phone. as a little recap on that subject, because I don't think she wants to come on camera and talk about it in a video. I keep trying to convince her, but basically the Tesla app keeps crashing on her phone, which is kind of important. And she's had music apps freeze, the phone die before it hit 0%, that kind of thing. So she's had more software bugs with her iPhone 10. So it's looking like we're probably not going to be able to wait for the SE4. We're getting more to the stage of we might need to upgrade her phone pretty soon here. And we're mostly torn at this point between an iPhone 12 and an iPhone 13. And the main, obviously the 13 is better. That's not the debate. It's mainly just a, can we find an iPhone 13 for a low enough price? She doesn't want to spend more than $300. Most of the iPhone 13s I found are a little over $300, and I'm like, oh, honey, come on, let's stretch it. Let's stretch it just a little bit to get you on the 13. The 13's a great phone. I know a lot of people still rocking the 13. Other than the Lightning port, it's basically a flawless iPhone. That was back when the iPhones all still had physical SIM trays and stuff. It'd be cool. AI sensors, you can call someone I don't want to read that. No, that sounds like a bad idea. It would be funny if you could have Apple Intelligence give information on Apple leaks. That would be funny. I guess it would. It can summarize news articles. That's a feature in Safari that has rolled out. There was another one that I'm blanking on. Let me check the list again. Oh, yeah, you can finally record phone calls, and it can give you a summary of the phone call. But whenever you start recording the phone call, it does notify both parties that a recording has begun. The recordings are kind of summarized and saved in the Notes app. 13 mini is king, but my wife prefers the bigger screens. If it was possible for her to get an iPhone 13 Plus, which doesn't exist, but she would definitely take it. If we could find her a 14 Plus for $300, that would be kind of, well, no. Dream scenario would be, obviously, 15 Pro Max for free, but that's not going to happen. She's debating if she should wait for the iPhone 16s to come out, because that will likely push down the resale value of the 13. She definitely doesn't want a 15 or a 16, though, just because of the price, not because of the features. But iPhone 13 is awesome. I agree. It was a good year. Also, really good color options that year. The iPhone 13 was kind of the last year we had decent color choices. That's the other kind of exciting thing to me is, but kind of give you a little sneak peek about where her mind is. We were looking around on eBay, because I've had decent experiences with buying from eBay refurbished for iPhone 13s. Couldn't really find one for under $300, but in the $300 to $1,400 range. And we were looking at the different color options, and I was like, oh, honey, the red iPhone 13 is like the best color of the iPhone series. And also, never mind. I was going to say, didn't the red come later, so that means it has to be a newer model, whereas if you buy one that's like black or white or blue or whatever, you don't know if it came out in 2021 or 2022. But then I realized, no, the iPhone 13 launched with a product red. It was the dark green color that came in 2023. So if you got the dark green color, that kind of assures that you're getting one from 2023 or later. I hate Apple's color palette. It's so terrible. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a color. It's a cost-cutting measure. 12 Pro Max for below $350 could probably be pulled off. Yeah, we'll look into it for sure. We'll consider it. But the story that I was getting at was, she said, "Is there a purple iPhone 13?" Because purple's her favorite color. And I was like, no, technically there was never a purple 13. And she was like, but is there a purple 12? And in my heart, I was like, don't go for the 12 just so you can get you're going to put a case on it anyway. It doesn't matter. But but I had to tell her the truth. This is not my phone. She's asking a genuine question. I need to be honest. So I said, yes, there is a purple iPhone 12. And she was like, ooh, maybe we should find one of those. And I was like, Although, the bright side of her wanting a purple iPhone 12 is that does guarantee that it comes from 2022 and not 2021. There is a purple 12. So, that, similar to my tweet that kind of my quote tweet that kind of blew up because of Ariana Grande. There was a picture of, I think that's who it was. I don't know. I don't keep up with celebrities at all. But I think Ariana Grande was spotted using a regular iPhone 15. Simply, I think because it was pink. She wanted the pink one. And so I was joking, but I don't know if people can tell if I'm joking or not. But I was joking in my quote tweet that, it makes me so mad that Ariana Grande didn't buy a phone with 120 hertz. The point I was trying to make with the tweet through sarcasm was that, see, there's like a rich, millionaire pop star, and her deciding factor when getting a new phone was not which has the best camera, which has the faster port, which has the better display. She literally chose a phone based on which color fits my vibe the best. And similarly, my wife is almost in a similar position. Ultimately, I think price matters to her more than anything. Like if there was a purple 13, she would rather have that. Or no, she wouldn't rather have that. She would rather have the 12 just because it's cheaper. Yeah, should we call it pink? I don't know. But technically on paper it's pink. But it shows you where it's like the differences between phone generations are so small. I mean, really, when you're explaining to an average consumer, should I get an iPhone 13 or a 12? What's the argument going to be about? Why should someone get a 13 over a 12? All you can really say is 13 has a newer chip, so it might last a little longer. 13 has a better camera. How is the camera better? In what way is the camera better? And then you go, the deep fusion. I guess the 13 has better battery life. Yeah, I'm more with you, Em. The 12 and the 13 will probably get similar amounts of software support. I don't think it'll make a big difference whether it's 1 year or the next, especially if it's going to someone like my wife who, she's still rocking an iPhone 10. She didn't stop using her phone when it stopped getting software updates, clearly, because, yeah, longevity, battery life, that's about it. Bart Jansen, thank you for 33 months of support, by the way. I kind of just want to keep my 13 Pro Max until it dies. That's a good idea. I advise everybody do that. It's kind of like how I feel with any piece of, it could be anything. It doesn't have to be technology, but like we were talking about it today. I went on a nice walk with my wife this morning. We kind of got a break in the heat wave. It's finally cooled down today. So beautiful walk. Really nice weather, but I was wearing my flip-flops, which are very comfortable and easy to throw on, very light, and I've traveled the world with them. I've worn those flip-flops in Puerto Rico, in the Philippines, and in Thailand. So I was planning on taking them with me to my next big overseas adventure, which I'm not ready to talk about yet, but we are going overseas again. We've booked the flights, we booked the tickets, we're traveling. So I'll let everybody guess and find out later. I'll do travel videos and stuff on the Life channel, but she was like, are you ready to retire those flip-flops? And I said, they're still working. So I'll buy a new pair of flip-flops when these stop working. And I was thinking how that applies to the tech space as well. I don't think you should buy a new phone based on how good the new one is. You should base it on how bad your current one is. Is your current one not covering your daily needs? Are you not able to do everything you need to do with your phone because of your current phone? That's the question you should be asking, not how good is the iPhone 16 or how good is the 16 Pro Max and I'm on a 15 Pro. It should be based on how bad your current phone is, not how good the new phone is. So I agree with your mentality, Bart. I endorse that, and I'm going to try my best to live with that mindset with my 15 Pro. I know I've gone back on what I've said in the past many times, but I also think it's fair to say I'm a weird example because I review phones for a living, so I am financially motivated to try new phones out, and when my family is ready for an upgrade, oftentimes financially it just makes a lot more sense for me to give my existing phone to another family member or friend or sell it to whoever and then buy the new phone because I have to review the new phone anyway. So I shouldn't be looked at as the same kind of situation that you guys are in. But still, regardless of that, I want to try to practice what I preach and hopefully rock my 15 Pro as long as possible. Nothing I've read about the 16s has been that interesting or exciting to me as like something that I need personally. It's I'm sure it'll be a decent upgrade for people who haven't upgraded their phone in a while. But Alpha says, if you're interested in selling me the 10, please let me know. I will, but I think she's already got plans lined up for it. She might want to give it to my sister. I'm pretty confident, either my sister or a coworker. What are your thoughts on iPhone Mini Pro? Apple should just make iPhone Mini Pro. I like it in theory, but in execution, the camera bump would be comically large. I mean, look at how big the camera bump is on a 6.1-inch iPhone. Can you imagine what this camera bump would be like on a 5.4-inch iPhone? It would basically take up the entire top half, which might even get rid of the camera bump. Yeah, I'm all in favor of it. It's just not going to happen. Apple's just making phones bigger and bigger and bigger. They got rid of the minis. So she gets the 12 or 13, and she'll stay until iPhone 18 probably. I think she will stay until it stops working. That's pretty much the only reason we're talking about replacing her iPhone, is just that she's running into software issues and it's getting old. And yeah, that's her current phone is starting to not cover her daily needs, which is why she's considering getting a new one. And I will do my best to get her on the channel. If a $700 Mini didn't work, I don't think a $900 Mini Pro would work. That's true. I still wish one would exist, but yes, likely sales-wise, it just didn't perform all that great. I have the 14 Pro, going to get the 16 Pro Max for better battery and bigger screen. My hands are getting bigger, and the battery on my 14 sucks. Your hands are getting bigger. How old are you, Torian? That's the real question. Does anybody's wrists hurt because phones are so big these days? I haven't had wrist pain, but I do notice that sometimes the phone indents my pinky. Do you guys have it? There's like a very measurable, noticeable indent on people's pinkies that people have been picking up on. Nicholas said, would Louise be interested in the SE4? So good for the price. I tried to convince her of that because I really want her to switch to a phone with Type-C. There's already been, like, we have a charger on the couch that's Lightning because she charges her phone on the couch. And I want to sometimes charge my phone there, but I don't like having, because there's one outlet for the lamp or the speaker and another outlet for the phone. And I don't want two cables dangling around the couch. The one cable gets annoying enough. So the long-term solution would be if both me and my wife could charge our phone with the same cable. It would make traveling easier. It would make packing easier. It would make accessory sharing around the house easier. Same thing in the car. We have a Lightning cable in the car for my wife that I would like to use if I don't feel like wireless charging, if I need to charge it faster for whatever reason. But now, because she has Lightning and I have Type-C, we have to have two cables in the car, one for Lightning, one for Type-C. I get annoyed with that. I would rather just have one cable for the both of us. So I tried to persuade her, like, please, let's just wait a little bit longer for the SE4, and then we could both have Type-C. But even then, I don't think the SE4 is the price she's looking for. She doesn't want to spend more than $300. The SE4 is probably going to be $500 at least. But I tried to say, like, oh, honey, I'll review it, though. I could make videos about it, so it'll pay for itself. Yeah. Sorry. Couldn't persuade her. Didn't work. I don't have a dent on my pinky or any other finger. Wow, that's good. I definitely do. I just looked at my pinky. I'm wondering when that happened. Slowly over time. Probably got worse as we started holding our phones with more squared off edges, and it kind of digs into the bone. But yeah, a lot of people holding their phones like this, and over time it has created an indent on the middle section of a lot of people's fingers. So mine's pretty noticeable, and it's not as noticeable on this hand because I don't usually use my phone left-handed. I hope the 17 Slim is not a flip phone. I hate the idea and trend of flip phones. Well, ask yourself, what do you hate more? Because I'm not a particularly big fan of flip phones, to be fair. However, I'm not a particularly big fan of the idea of Apple just making a thinner iPhone for the sake of making a thinner iPhone. That's objectively worse. Like, what they're describing for the iPhone 17 Slim is it's more expensive than the Pro Max. It has worse cameras, worse battery life, worse display, worse materials, all for the sake of, well, it's thinner. Do you prefer that idea? Because I don't think I do. I think if I had to choose between pointless flip phone and pointless thin phone, I think I'd rather have pointless flip phone. That at least is a little bit more to talk about. Some people like having phones that flip. It's not me, but some people do. And it's gimmicky, but it's something to talk about. It's kind of marketable. You can kind of flip it, or, you know, you can leave it somewhat open and then rest it sideways on a table if you don't have a pop socket around or you just wanted to prop your phone up really easily. Kind of like all those features Samsung's been bragging about. You know, you can leave it in laptop position and have it fold upright so when you're doing a FaceTime call, it can track with you. Or, you know, I don't hate the idea of, if I'm recording a lot of my videos on a phone like this, I'm using the rear-facing camera, but I could have a cover display to kind of give me a viewfinder of, okay, am I centered in the frame, or is the camera still recording? Did a phone call come in? All kinds of things that I don't see because I'm talking to the camera from the opposite direction, right? So I agree that both phones are somewhat gimmicky and pointless, but I think the flip phone would sell better / be more interesting than just thin for the sake of thin. But I'm saying neither is not an option, because Apple is a $1 trillion company with a huge marketing budget, and they're constantly trying to figure out, how do we make iPhones interesting again? And we tried the mini thing, and that didn't work out. So it's a marketing team that's looking for a way to, how do we get the iPhone popular again? How do we get people talking about new iPhone features? And you can't say, let's work on a really cheap phone, because that's not going to bring in more money. That's just going to cannibalize sales. So you have to come up with a feature that ends up costing the consumer more and getting people excited. Is it moral? No. Is it ethical? No. But that's the world they live in. If you have to go in a more expensive, exciting direction, I think foldables are really the only way to go. Not that foldables are practical or useful. I'm just saying they're different, at least. And Apple's been following. I don't think they needed to go the whole Apple Intelligence route, but they did. Apple's now a follower, in my opinion. They're less of a leader. Vision Pro wasn't, the first of any kind. It was just kind of Apple's version of a mixed reality headset, which already existed, but Apple had to do their take on it. Now we might get Apple's take on a foldable. Red69 says, do you think the Apple devices lack character after Johnny Ive left? I don't know why I remember the 10R and 5C quite fondly. Like, they were so cute, and also the UI. I think they still have... The OS, I feel like, has more character than the hardware, but I think that's just a side effect of hardware maturing and getting to a point where there's not many other directions it can go. Like, that's why we're having the foldable discussion, not because foldables are very practical, but it's just because... what else can you do? You can only make the bezel so thin. You can only make the chassis so thin. You can only make the camera so good, the display so good. So you get to the point where all you have left is software and services to improve on, which is why they start software locking more things, because it's like, yeah, if we add the software to the older phone, no one's going to buy the new phone. So let's come up with software features that require new hardware. So they lean into large language models because it probably drives people to upgrade. More people are like, oh, I need to get a Pro, otherwise I'm going to get software locked out of features, which, again, not ethical, not moral, but it is a business, and this is how their industry works. If you're looking for more exciting, true innovation, I would look in the EV industry. That's where there's more radical, exciting change, in my opinion. It's not so much in the consumer electronics space. That space has kind of matured and peaked, and there's not much going on other than Apple Intelligence, which, in my opinion, is just marketing lingo. It's not really features that are that game-changing. I hope the 17 Slim is thin like the iPhone 6. I would buy it if it was thin like the iPhone 6 minus the bending. Well, just think about it, though. You're paying... it's going to be more money than a Pro for a worse battery and a worse camera and a worse display. It's not rumored to be cheaper, which is why I have a hard time getting excited for the concept of just make a phone thinner for the sake of being thinner. Please get the SE4 to review on the channel, but have it to where it is around Luis's birthday. This can be the excuse to get it. The problem is when you have joint and shared finances, I can't really buy my wife things as a surprise, because we share our bank accounts, we share our expenses, we share our incomes and all that, which is basically like, if I buy something as a surprise, it's the equivalent of me using her money to buy things without her permission. So I just know for a fact she wouldn't like that. So that's why I'm not going to do it. But yeah, That would be nice. I'm afraid the SE4 is coming out long after her birthday anyway, but she would rather have the money. Thin is more difficult to handle. Potentially, I guess it depends on the chassis shape, but I joined Tech YouTube at the wrong time, yet somehow more people have been subbing to my Gadgets channel instead of Drive channel. It is relatable. I think that there's still momentum. I don't know how that fly got in, but dang it. There's a lot of momentum because a lot of people buy phones. It's a multi-billion user industry. There's billions of people buying smartphones now. And most people are upgrading them every 3 to 4 years, but in the tech community, it's more like every other year. So any small, insignificant change in the smartphone world, even though it may not seem like a big deal, affects a lot of people, which is why I still think in the tech community, you'll get a lot of numbers. You'll get a lot of people curious about the next iPhone or about the next Mac, because there's a lot of people that buy those things. And less so in the automotive space. There's less people buying brand new cars every year, and they definitely don't upgrade them that frequently as they do phones. It's a $500 purchase versus a $40,000 purchase. So while there's more innovative and exciting tech development in the EV industry, it's less relatable because a lot less people can afford it, and it's an overall smaller industry. There's, I think, I want to say around 200 million vehicles on planet Earth or something. No, there's more than that. There's probably 2 billion vehicles, period, but usually people hold on to them for longer. I think I want to say there's like 60 million vehicles sold per year, somewhere around there. So 60 million sold per year versus smartphone industry is probably more like 300, 400 million units sold. So it's a bit more relatable, and there's a bit more momentum from it. It's everybody on Earth practically who has access to, running water and food tends to have access to a smartphone of some kind, which just means that there's a lot more people potentially interested in it. Obviously, the tech community is a small sliver of the overall world, but even if it's a small sliver of 3 billion people, that can be a lot of potential viewers. I knew this is going to be a problem when they made the iPad thinner for absolutely no reason. I don't know how else they can innovate, but it still disappoints me. It does make it lighter. That was going to be my only pushback to saying that thinner is more difficult to handle. Also, a lot of people use cases, which is why maybe making a super thin iPhone with a case on it isn't as dangerous or as flexible as people are thinking. But I'm thinking of getting a 2020 Bolt LT, the base trim that I see for $13,500. Wish I could afford a Tesla, but with $4,000 off, that might make a great commuter. I'm right there with you, Hummus Yummus. I've found some very cheap Chevy Bolts that are incredibly tempting. As long as we still get access to that EV tax credit, yeah, the Chevy Bolt is hard to beat. If you're not road tripping, that's a really good deal. Do you remember when the boom of the smartphone era was? When did they start to become popular in your family? Interested on your take, as I was only 2 years old in 2007. Oh, wow. You guys are young. I definitely felt like every year it got bigger. I don't know if there was one year in particular that it just kind of blew up. But iPhone 4 felt like a pretty substantial year. I remember seeing iPhones more in the wild, used by everyday people when the 4 came out. I had one friend that had an iPhone 3G, I think, but he was a pretty techie guy. He was definitely like a tech enthusiast. I didn't see everyday consumers that weren't techie people using iPhones until around the 4. And then I remember being in high school when the 5 came out. That was when I first got an iPhone. I was pretty much the first person in my family with an iPhone. And they all saw how practical and useful it was. And then shortly after I got mine, they were all using flip phones. And then they saw me with the iPhone 5 and went, yeah, that is kind of handy. That is kind of nice. And they all bought iPhone 5s a few months after I did. And then I started seeing more, students. And, well, I remember first there was a substitute teacher I had in high school that had an iPhone 5. And I was like, whoa, that looks so cool. And like, oh my gosh. I was 9 years old in 2007, so definitely didn't take off immediately. I don't recall, I don't think, ever seeing an original iPhone in the wild. maybe I would have been too young to recognize it. I probably wasn't following tech that closely back then, but I remember a friend of mine showing me their 3G, and I was like, oh, this is cool. And he was showing me how the App Store worked, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. But I do remember my sister had like a party at our house once, like a birthday party or something, and one of her friends had an iPhone 4, and that was the first time I'd seen one in the wild. And I just remember being like, oh, can I see it? And it was like, oh, there's a flash. That was the big iPhone 4 feature, was that there was a flashlight function, so you could light it up and, you know, just keep the flash on or take pictures, and it had a flash just like a digital camera. And that was a pretty big deal, and I was really excited by it. And even the girl I was talking to that had it was not that impressed with it. She was just like, oh, you want to look at my phone? Okay, fine. And I was just like, whoa, this is so cool. And she was like, really? It's just a phone. She didn't see the big deal about it. But yeah, I would say around the 4 or the 5 era was when it kind of was starting to go more mainstream and less enthusiast. I feel like I could be wrong, but at least in my social circles, the original iPhone and the 3G and the 3GS were kind of when it was more of an enthusiast thing. It was like you were an Apple sheep that followed Apple really closely if you bought an iPhone. Yeah, the Retina display was cool, but I don't think anybody cared that much when it came out. I guess maybe people cared. I don't know. I don't remember people bringing up much attention about it, but Burkhart says, part of the fact that I accurately predicted all of the news just 2 hours before it leaked. Good job, Burkhart. Yeah, I feel good when that happens too. You know, it'd be a cool idea. Apple Intelligence for the home. OS for home servers. It is like Mac Pro for pro users. OS for home servers for tech heads in the industry. It sounds cool in theory, but again, I'm wondering what the real world application is. What does it do? What do you do with smart home tech? It turns on the air conditioner right before you get home, and then it turns it off when you leave. Wow. What an idea. I did not use the iPhone before iPhone 7, when you could use it on T-Mobile. That's right. There was a long time you could only get the iPhone on AT&T. I remember that being a problem because I really wanted a new iPhone back when the 4 came out, and it was... When was it? No, maybe it was before that. I remember telling my parents about it. I was like, the iPhone's really cool. And they were like, yeah, but you need AT&T. And my family was on Verizon. So it was just like not even a thought. We were like, no, we're definitely not going to switch carriers just so you can get some phone. And then I think it was around the iPhone 4 era, they added it to Verizon. And now it's like anything. It doesn't even matter. I'm 29 and I feel younger and much less established. You haven't paid off home yet. People I know in their mid to late 20s are renting. That's very odd and unusual, though. I will confess. Most people probably wouldn't throw as much money into their mortgage as we did. We also bought a very small, old home with a lot of problems. So I have a paid off house, but I'm paying for it in other ways. It was built... I don't want to give too much away, but it wasn't built very well. We had to replace the roof. There's the HVAC was horrible. There's still plumbing issues. There's still siding issues. There's still insulation problems. There's a bunch of problems with this house. So it was cheap, which is why we were able to pay it off so fast. But yeah, it's because of my income being so volatile that we were very focused on eliminating as many monthly recurring expenses as possible. Most people that have more consistent income, I would advise not to pay off the mortgage as quickly as possible because you could use that money towards retirement accounts or savings. And if you have a bit more of a predictable income, you should probably buy a bit more house than you think you need, or a nicer house, because you know, if you're, as an example, if you're like a teacher or something, or a lawyer or a doctor, I don't know exactly how consistent those incomes are, but if you have a government job that has protection and there's a union involved, then I would feel a lot more comfortable getting a bigger mortgage because I would just feel like the income is a bit more predictable. But with my line of work, the income is very unpredictable, which is why we were like, let's just push all the money towards the debt as quickly as possible so that in these off seasons, it's kind of prepared for this type of scenario, actually, where there's not a lot of exciting tech news. I was kind of researching recently. I'm like, what are these other tech channels doing that I'm not doing? Like how do other channels get views? And I'm not naming names. I don't want to pick a fight. I don't want to start drama, but looking at what other tech channels do to kind of get a lot of revenue or get a lot of traction is a ton of them clickbait, or they make news feel like a bigger deal than it is. Like they say, this thing's going to change your mind, or I'm pumped, I'm super excited. And maybe they genuinely believe that, but I would be dishonest if I was saying those things. Like, I would be rude. I would be lying to you if I said, like, the iPhone 16 is going to blow your mind, or the iPhone 16 rumors are confirmed, or here's the definite design. It's like, we don't know. These are unknown things, and these are things that are not locked down. And I also think it's worth saying that a lot of it's not that exciting. They're just changing a couple of things, and you should probably consider buying used, that type of thing. But I don't think honesty and just being straight up with your audience about how a particular field, in this case the tech field, would be beneficial to the channel's performance. At least I'm kind of a good example of that. Of like, yeah, just saying it how it is doesn't necessarily help you that much. But anywho, oh God, that can't. Ben, what? No way. No. What just happened? That can't be right. I'm not reading that correctly, am I? What? He says, on Apple Intelligence right now, I still hate it. This AI craze is only making everything worse. Even typing the super chat took 3 minutes because of Google's moronic AI. Assisted auto infill for text. Apple Intel is just going to make it so the deranged anti-vaccine rants from family members sound even less. What just happened? I'm actually genuinely scared. Did Apple Intelligence? Oh my God, there it is. There's the notification. Where is the refund button? Bruh. This is not okay. This is not okay. I'm genuinely worried actually. I think Apple Intelligence automatically sent his super chat to be like the highest it could possibly be. Genuinely, Ben, if you can hear this, Benjamin says, been like a year since I got a live video. This AI crap should only be used for Siri or the background stuff, like it always has been, like how the phone can detect which type of parrot. Was that intentional? That really, I'm worried that didn't feel like an intentional super chat, and that's what he said. No refund needed. I don't know what to say. Okay, well, you're definitely getting moderator privileges. That's for sure. You, at least you should be definitely added as a mod. That's, I believe, by far the biggest super chat you could possibly send. Why would you do that? Seriously, though, why? He said it was intentional, but seriously, though, you shouldn't be doing that. It's just irresponsible, really. There's so many like charities. There's more important things. My goodness. I hope you are a rich man. Maybe he was a rich man until he said that. I might. We might need to turn off the super chats. Genuinely. There's Apple Intelligence probably suggested that amount. Maybe I should be more nice to Apple Intelligence. It's encouraging everybody to super chat these absurd donations, which are far too generous, far too kind. I definitely have the nicest, most generous audience in the world. What have I done? To be clear, this was the whole point of having the channel memberships, was because I always feel terrible when people super chat that much, because I feel like they're not getting anything out of this. Now he sent it via iOS because it's $499.99. If he sent it on desktop, Yeah, which means that Apple gets a cut of the super chat. So I'll probably end up getting half that. It'll probably end up being like a $300 super chat, which is very generous and kind. But just for future reference out there, I did make the joke about buying you a Cybertruck a few years ago. Right, that was a joke. That's what we call a joke. I agree. That's a crazy amount of money for a message, but the whole reason behind doing the channel memberships was I felt bad whenever people would super chat large amounts like that. So I wanted to create a membership feature so that you would get more for your money. You could get early access to videos or the behind the scenes so that you could have more personal live streams. That was the whole motivation behind the channel memberships. But then Benjamin goes ahead and just breaks everything. Yeah, YouTube will get 30%, Apple will get 30%. If y'all are going to do crazy super chats like that, please just reach out on Twitter or something and we can do it over PayPal so that we don't lose out on a big fee or whatever. Anyway, thank you. That's what I meant to say. Thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. Very kind of you, very generous. I have the best fans in the world. Seriously, you guys are incredible. Love you all, and I'm sorry if the tech videos aren't as exciting or as interesting as other channels. I try my best, but he says I just like the channel and don't mind contributing. Wow. I'm genuinely speechless. I really don't know how to I don't know how to respond to that, but you're far too kind. I don't think I deserve it. No, I mean just to be clear, to you guys, like I would do this even if you didn't super chat, just because it's fun for me to talk about. I like figuring out what you guys are interested in. I like talking about real-world applications and exciting developments, or maybe not exciting, but just real-world developments going on in the tech community, figuring out what phone or what product makes the best sense for your guys' lifestyle. I have this new job with Tello as well. Without giving away too much, Tello is most of my income now, which is why I really don't want you guys to feel like you have to be a channel member or you have to super chat, because I'll be okay. Like, even if you don't, like, I don't need it. I'll be fine. I would hope that money gets more directed, those donations, which I'm incredibly grateful and thankful for, but I really would hope that those donations would go to things that are in more need of help. That was crazy. That's never happened before. So I'm a little in shock. I'm a little perplexed, but I don't deserve it, so I don't need it, and I hope you guys are just as generous to other young up-and-coming channels that are. Ben is securing Louise the SE4 as close as he can. Hopefully that changes her mind. I'll tell her, like, hey, how would that be manipulative for me to word it that way? If I said, honey, what if someone donates $500 via super chat? Could we get the SE4? It would probably be wrong for me to say that, knowing that someone has super chatted, but oh god. Benjamin donates to Progressive Victory Super PAC. Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you, Benjamin. I'll try to move on from that. Those super chats always just kind of disrupt the whole live stream because I can't say, wow, thanks, Ben. Moving on. Just want to remind everybody, I don't deserve it. Save your money. Y'all are too kind. You're far too kind. Thank you. It'd be cool to ask the Siri on my home server to run house choices for me. Like what? Apple OS on home servers, try to make the AI assistant like in the movies where you can talk to the home. Again, you gotta give a real world application. Like, and do what? House, microwave my food. Like what? Like I don't see it. I don't get it. But sorry, I'm having a hard time segueing because of Benjamin's generosity. It was far too much. Thoughts and prayers because I'm broke. It ain't much, but it's honest work. How do I redirect this super chat to Tragic Toast? Oh God, what a mess. Ugh. Hi Drew, I hate it here in Portugal. I cannot trick my phone into thinking it is outside the EU. Really? I thought Portugal was a lovely place. I've never been there, but they'll probably give the new Siri UI to the pre-15 devices like the flashlight indicator later on. Gotta save super chat reactions till the end of stream and do it all at once. Ugh. I guess so. I don't want to miss it, though. It's so you can talk to your house when you're lonely. Well, I could talk to my phone when I'm lonely. And my phone actually joins me on those trips. All depends. Initiate self-destruct. 46 months from Alvin Brock. Holy crap, you guys are far too kind. Visualizer's been a member for 32 months. Hi, Drew. How are you? I'm overwhelmed, honestly, with gratitude. I just feel like, I don't know. My brain can't wrap around the generosity of the audience right now. So I'm just like, what just happened? I'm just kind of like in shock, basically. So I'm doing very well, but very thankful. So, again, appreciate you guys. You're far too kind. Thank you. The one thing I wanted Apple Intelligence for was Siri, and somehow it's still terrible. I thought I saw someone say that Siri responses are still really bad, but the animations are good. That's... Now my phone's going off again. I thought I turned off all of the... I never use Siri as like a... I say, hey, this. Listen. Yeah, I'm just turning that off. I hate how much it goes off. Burkhart's been a member for 9 months, sending my member milestone since everyone is. Yeah, I guess we'll catch up. You guys are just super generous, and I'm very thankful. And you got your memberships, and of course Ben's absurd super chats are helping me get through the dry season as far as the channel's performance is concerned. But I'm pretty excited for Siri to be good. Hopefully, I'd love for it to understand me better and do more for me when I'm driving, for my hands are preoccupied. I don't know. Maybe it's different because my wife is usually texting and handling things when I'm in the car driving, but there's just not a lot of use cases I've thought of. Usually whenever I write out the text by voice, it misses out on the punctuation or the way I write, so I typically just don't do it. Benjamin says, it's a cool animation, but maybe for like restarting or something else, it's super intrusive for Siri. Interesting. He finds it intrusive. Having conversations, Apple Intelligence Siri is going to be crazy. The demos Apple gave us at DubDub, I didn't find very natural or very human compared to what ChatGPT has shown, which you can get via the app. You know, you can download it on your iPhone. But some of the conversations and the language models I've seen communicate between people with ChatGPT looked spooky. Like, I wouldn't say they're very functional. They're not necessarily the most utility effective features, but it feels like you're talking to a human, which is what I thought kind of the peak. Honestly, I just feel like that's where digital assistants should be by now. You know, we've had digital assistants that can do basic things in a kind of sucky way ever since the 4S. And they've gotten a little bit better since then, but for the most part, it's still like, yeah, you have to be very careful with how you word everything. You can't really leave big pauses in your sentences, and you can't change your train of thought too many times, otherwise they get confused. Until now, with these large language models, we're now finally able to get to a point where we can kind of start to look at more natural, more casual conversations with digital assistants, which is what I think we should be at by now. Like, we should be able to talk to them like they're a person on the other end. We should be able to talk to them like they're a human being, and yet, even with these new Apple Intelligence features, I still feel like you talk to it like it's a robot. But some of those ChatGPT demos I saw were like... I'm not a big fan of ChatGPT, but still, some of the apps they showcased made me go, yeah, that's pretty spooky. It really does feel like you just have a receptionist or a human being that knows you and can do everything you need just on the phone. And you can just queue them up at any time and be like, hey, what's the situation with this? But again, they're ultimately an assistant, not a replacement. Simply Sora has been a member for 25 months. Says, if it can dig through my group chats I haven't read and tell me when and where the next meeting is, that would actually be hype. I'm pretty sure it can do that, yeah. I just don't find that coming up much. I just feel like when there's an event At least I have work meetings now at the Telo Trucks team, and usually when they schedule an event, it shows up in my calendar, and I can either accept or decline it right from there. I wouldn't want to text a digital assistant when the next meeting is. Like, that wouldn't be the fastest way to go about my day. But I think I get what you're saying. You can turn it off. It's really just one slider in settings. Probably will turn it off once it's properly live. People are saying it's intrusive. I kind of get what you're saying, how it takes over the whole screen. I would like to be able to talk to Siri and have it do things as I'm texting or doing other things, instead of having it light up the whole screen and act like, okay, you're using me now. It's like, no, just do this in the background. It could just be a dynamic island thing, but maybe they want to get toward that point. But I think ChatGPT integration will not be used very much at all for Siri, only to gain knowledge from the web on topics. ChatGPT will probably always be better through the app. It's true, it probably will, but I do think with Apple Intelligence, ChatGPT is kind of being used as the cop-out. Like, in the same way, if you ask a question that Siri doesn't know, and she just says, should I search the web for that? This is the Apple equivalent of searching the web. It's like, rather than searching the web, it's just going to ask ChatGPT, because Apple believes that's the best large language model, and it probably is. I mean, it's probably neck and neck with Gemini and other ones, depending on the time of year, where sometimes one improves and the other one gets worse, or they go back and forth. But without it being intrusive, how will Wall Street notice? That's true. That does ultimately come back to Apple is embracing AI because they want to jump on board this marketing train. And they've seen the investment that OpenAI has gathered, and they're hopping on the bandwagon, and they see that this is a popular trend, so they need to be upfront and act like it's a big deal and a big feature, when in reality, it's probably the kind of iOS features we would have gotten anyway. But Randy says if you need content for the down season, you can always review an iPad. Yeah, I could. Is there an iPad I haven't reviewed yet, though? I checked out the M4 iPad. I did a video on that. Not much has changed about how I feel about iPads. I'll be honest, though, we talked about this on the members-only stream recently. I've thought about reviewing the Z Flip 6. Just because it's been a while since I've reviewed a folding phone, or an Android phone, really. But definitely a long time since I've reviewed a folding phone, and I feel like there is a larger and larger likelihood that Apple is making a folding phone. And also the rumors are pointing to, if Apple does make a foldable, it'll probably be a flip, not a fold. So maybe it's worth revisiting or seeing the latest version of it and seeing what's changed. And I haven't reviewed a Samsung phone in a long time, but I don't know. It's a lot of work to go out and buy, and I always feel bad about buying something that I don't plan on keeping, that kind of thing. But if you didn't like the concept of the flip before, it's not going to change your mind now. Yeah, that's probably true. It's a good point, but that's why I haven't done it yet. I was at a Best Buy. I could have done it. We were charging the car. I was right there. We were visiting some family this weekend, and the Best Buy was right there, and it was in stock. I checked the website, and I was like, maybe, but nah. You know, it's a dry news season, which is why these tech creators are getting desperate, including myself, where it's like, I'm even considering reviewing a Samsung product. That's how slow the news is. Do it, Z Flip anything. I want to see how that evolved over time from my mother-in-law's Z Flips. My guess is it hasn't changed much, but first time I've ever seen Apple join a trend instead of ignoring it while doing the good parts a few years later. I mean, there's lots of examples of that. I mean, Apple was not the first to do an ultra-wide lens. They eventually did that. Everyone was begging Apple to do USB-C, and they didn't do it for the longest time, and then they finally did it. Telephoto, telescope lenses, periscope lens. They didn't want to do it originally, and then they did it. OLED was not an iPhone thing, but they eventually jumped on the bandwagon, but they tried to do it the best they possibly could. So I feel similarly about a foldable. Apple would not be first to a folding phone, but they would probably make the best one. I bet the software would be the best of any folding phone because it's iOS, and that's just better than Android usually. Is ChatGPT integrated with Apple Intelligence? Yeah, no, it is not. It's mostly just the proofread features, one new focus mode, and some improved large language models to photo search and notifications. Or am I going to do the Tesla extended warranty? Probably not. I asked people what they thought. I thought about doing it. I'm about to run out of my vehicle's basic warranty within the next week. I have about 160 miles left, and then it's free for all. I still have the warranty on the battery and the powertrain, but everything else expires probably next week. And it's $1,800 to extend the warranty, but I think if something goes bad, it probably won't cost $1,800 to repair. Or something could go bad and I just live with it. That's probably the more likely situation. But Apple's rarely first, but they usually don't jump in until the trend is over, is what I mean. Right. Which I feel like the folding phone market is kind of matured a little bit. Like, it's not going to grow much more without Apple entering it. They've gotten the displays pretty durable and reliable now. Lots of people use them. I've even seen everyday consumers with folding phones, which surprises me. I don't know if it's because that person genuinely needs the folding feature, but I have seen them in the wild. Checking out some dumb phones would be neat. That's true. That might be worth investigating. Would like to see your opinion on the Z Flip. I've been seeing more Apple-centric YouTubers trying it this year. Interesting indeed. I don't know. I'll think about it. It'll depend on how dry the news gets. Apple is joining a trend in the sense that they're integrating AI into their software, but Apple Intelligence is unique in the fact that it is highly performant large language model that runs on tons of devices. Right, which again I still think is another version of we're doing what everybody else is doing in our own way. I would also echo the same thing that Apple Vision Pro, while very much different from any other headset on the market, is still a headset. It is still a mixed reality headset. You're looking at screens, and you strap it on your face, and it takes you to virtual environments. Now, Apple had a lot less of a gaming emphasis, and they definitely put more emphasis on a good pass-through compared to something like the Quest 3, which is much cheaper and came out before the Apple Vision Pro. But Apple found a way to do what they call, spatial computing in their own way. So similarly, I think Apple could do a foldable in a way that's very different from the way Samsung does it. Maybe even if that just means doing it with iOS. But yeah, it's off-putting. My Series 5 Apple Watch has also weakened so badly that I have permanent burn-in and all the red color pixels are dead. It's off-putting to look at. Ooh. Sorry, my sister's just texting me real quick. Yeah, I think it's part of the reason I've kind of talked myself out of getting Apple Watches is the shelf life. I know they go bad after a certain number of years. And a friend of mine who wore several Apple Watches, he had multiple. He had the Series 3 and then he switched to the Series 7, I think. Now doesn't wear it at all, and he just realized that the notifications and the health stuff was just making him more stressed and just causing more anxiety. Just made him feel like he was failing all the time. And he's a really healthy guy. He's in his 70s, and he just stopped wearing it. He was just, I'm tired of having to charge that thing, and I'm tired of people being able to get a hold of me that easily. He's like, sometimes I just want to leave my phone behind, and I don't want to have to think about the watch band and the tan on my... So it's really funny how I've kind of come full circle, but there was genuinely a time where I loved my Apple Watch, and I never thought I would go back to not having one, but here I am. I've not had one for, I want to say, like close to a year, maybe 9 months, and I'm okay. I'm not missing it, actually. I don't want one still. The kind of person I'd love to be friends with. Oh, you are too, Zeker. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But yeah, I wish I could be friends with all of you. That would just be incredibly difficult to come to where all of you are. But that's why my compromise as a content creator is just do these live streams, try to keep up with as many of you as I can so that everybody feels like they get a little bit of hangout time. So that's my goal. AI isn't mature. What does mature AI feature set look like? It might be. I mean, it's not flawless, but my point is, it might. A lot of people may think that, oh well, because it's flawed, it has a long ways to go. We might run out of the capability of large language models. We don't know what the local maximum is. It might not get much better than it is right now. It's possible. Um, let's see. I'm interested in checking out a couple Nokia dumb phones. I feel like physically they are too cheap, though. Don't have a good tactile feel like the old 2000s phones. It's an interesting avenue that I haven't explored before, so it might be worth looking into. Dude, I thought I drive a lot, but somehow you do double than me. Well, when your office and your workspace is hundreds of miles away, that'll happen. Anyway, I have to go pick up my wife now. She's almost done with work, and she's got to lock up, so I don't want her to be left out in the heat. But seriously, especially today of all days, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you from the bottom of my heart. All of the channel members, all the super chats. You guys are far, far, far too generous. I am spoiled by you guys, and I hope you know that while life may get busy sometimes and there's other jobs that come and go, I don't forget about you. I'm thinking constantly about how to make interesting content funny, and trying to cover the tech space in a way that's interesting, even if it's not as exciting as it used to be. I'm still looking, I'm still wanting to explore, and I'm still wanting to try things. So yes, Raptor Buddy, I'm very excited for the new season of Severance. I have a free couple months of Apple TV Plus that I'm waiting to redeem simply so that I can watch the latest Apple Severance season. Anyway, I appreciate you all for tuning in. Yeah, I think the dumb phone route might be interesting. I'll take a look around. Oh my God, another super chat at the last second. Michael Lazito, you guys are all way too kind. Seriously, way, way, way too generous. Please just know that I'll keep doing this regardless of what you guys are willing to share. And thanks, Mike. Thanks, Randy. Hopefully we can all podcast soon. And last one for the road. You guys, seriously, save your money. I'll be fine. You're far too generous. Appreciate you all.